mothers wear several different hats. From the moment that we wake, we do a lot of planning, thinking, executing. We're running the household, we're managing our children's play dates, we're managing their school affairs, and if we are working moms, we've got to get to work on time, we've got to sort out our work and get our work done properly. Then we need to go home, rush, pick the kids, sort out their meals, sort out their bedtime, and sort out their homework. There's so much for us to do and to take on. For that reason, I think that it's very important to place focus on maternal mental health. And in line with Maternal Mental Health Week, today I'll be talking a little bit more about my experience as a mom, and perhaps today a bit more specifically my pregnancy journey, to share with everyone who's watching, to talk about how it's really important to look after ourselves, our mental health, and to reach out for help when we need them. I have 2 boys. With the first child, we were pretty excited when we first found out that we were pregnant. We were also feeling a little bit apprehensive and a bit overwhelmed because there's so many things to buy, and you have to not only shop for them. Well, I like to get the best deal, so I will have to look around a bit more, and you know that you have to get a confinement lady, you have to build furniture, you have to reorganize the structure of your house, and we have to tell people around us. I have to tell my patients. So while it was exciting that there was this little thing growing inside me, I was also quite overwhelmed by all the things that I had to do. I suffered really bad morning, but probably in my situation, evening sickness. I couldn't walk. I was just horizontal and I was vomiting so much. I was so nauseated, so sick, feeling so awful. I remember feeling very, very hungry, but I can't eat. And then when I wanted to eat, I ate only junk food. So I was very convinced. I told my husband that I think this must be a boy because I'm eating everything that he likes to eat, but nothing that I like to eat, because the things that I usually enjoy doing, like the food that I like to eat, or even simple things like taking a walk or being vertical, I couldn't do any of that for almost one entire trimester, and halfway through the second trimester, my anxiety level started peaking because I was worried about what work would think of me. I was worried about what the patients would think. I was teaching in a uni at that point, so I had assignments I need to deliver, papers I needed to mark, classes I needed to teach, and I was really concerned about what people would be thinking about me, always taking MC time off and really just not being able to function so well. Second pregnancy, I felt a lot of anxiety, I felt a lot of worry, I felt a lot of guilt because I thought it couldn't get worse than the first pregnancy. But the second pregnancy, I was so sick, I was actually hospitalized. I was vomiting so much, my stomach lining tore and I was like vomiting blood. I couldn't keep water in, I couldn't keep food in, I was miserable. That coincided with the start of COVID, so there was a lot of restrictions that started to come in. We had to start to wear masks. I was vomiting a lot and I had to wear the mask. There were significant changes happening at work that I had to sort out. I still had a toddler at home who had to stop going to school because of the COVID changes. So I had to manage that. I had a lot of guilt because I was so sick, so I couldn't play with him. Eventually, I became a very, very big pregnant woman, so I couldn't sit on the floor. I was experiencing a lot of physical pain. And at that point, I was experiencing like the hyperemesis to such a significant extent that the doctors even prepped me to say, you must be prepared that you may experience this all the way to the end of your pregnancy. So I was very teary, I felt very depressed. I felt like I wasn't prepared to deal with all of this. It was just really chaotic. So I remember like many nights in tears and just really stressed and really upset. There was a lot of physical changes. There was a lot of emotional changes. I think maybe 50% of that was also compounded by hormones. And I put on 25 kg for my pregnancy. So I was so big that I couldn't actually walk. Each time I walked, I was like, my hips were dislocating. I was in a lot of pain. And I think that actual experience of like body image issues, I just ballooned into 25 kg. Like people were asking me if I was having twins. And that made me anxious if I were actually having twins. The scene from Friends when Erica just said there was, there were 2 heartbeats and then she thought it was her own heartbeat and then another baby came out. I wasn't prepared for that. So there was anxiety about that. I think that the feeling of pregnancy and the feeling of motherhood, and it was very isolating because everyone's pregnancy is different, even if you have a lot of friends and family, because depending on the composition of your family and the support. So what really helped me was actually talking to people who could understand. But I actually found my own village of women, village of friends, good friends who actually stood by me, who were really understanding and empathic, gave me the space to talk about how I felt, turn to my husband, help him understand what I was going through. I was very, very lucky. I think my older child, he was so loving and supportive towards the pregnancy and the baby, so that alleviated a lot of stress. And actually, he's also a very strong form of support for me. I shared this previously. I was pregnant and I had the older one, and I had to try to put the older one to sleep. It was 4 a.m. in the morning and I was really tired, but my baby only wanted me. I used to live by a river on a high floor, so it was 4 a.m. I stood at the window and I looked down and I see all these people jogging at 4 a.m. And that made me feel even worse, because I'm like, these people don't have to look after babies. They had the luxury of time to go jogging at 4 a.m. Why are they jogging at 4 a.m.? Like, do they work shift jobs? Do they have a routine, but they have choice and they have control? And I just felt like everything is out of control for me. I had no choice and I was so miserable. Previously I joined like social media mothers groups. In that particular experience, I think I was quite depressed about my situation. So I actually posted something. I said, it's 4 a.m, are any moms still up? And within 5 minutes, I had like 89 moms just posted and say, yes, I am. And in fact, there are moms all over the world too, because they could be Singaporean moms but living overseas. And everyone just provided camaraderie. And in that moment, I felt like I really wasn't so lonely. And there were many moms doing the same thing in different blocks, different houses, different postal codes, but we were all struggling together at the same time. So that didn't feel so alone. I cried a lot. I'll cry a lot, and then I'll clean myself up, and then I'll go run clinics, come back, deal with my child, and still, struggle with my pregnancy. I think a lot of the things that I like to do, I couldn't do very much. So I like to take walks, or I like to go jogging. I couldn't do it because I was too sick. Either I had very bad nausea and morning sickness, or I was too big. I couldn't really walk or move. So I was horizontal a lot. In the beginning stages, I couldn't eat very well or very much, but when the morning sickness stopped, then I actually coped by eating. That probably contributed significantly to my weight gain. I think I turned to reading, I turned to Netflix, I turned to music. I had a couple of times that I tried to do like handicraft stuff just for the sake of trying something new, but I think I'm not very artsy, so that just kind of went down the chute after a while. I think the one and only thought that really was the most impactful for me was that this moment will pass. And when I reminded myself that this moment will pass, I also reminded myself that, hey, I'm not going to have a third or fourth or fifth baby, and this is kind of the last time I'm going to experience pregnancy. So it kind of helped me develop a little bit more gratitude that I had a healthy child and the pregnancy is healthy. I was grateful that I didn't have gestational diabetes despite my significant weight gain, and I could eat anything that I wanted to eat. So when I reminded myself to be in the moment, I think it gave me a little bit more capacity to turn my mind towards things that I could develop a bit more gratitude, and that helped to balance how miserable I felt. I started to think, hey, I think it's quite a fit, right? It's quite an achievement that I put on 25 kg for this pregnancy. Pregnancy is going well, my baby is fed well, he's absorbing the nutrients. It's a happy thing. And so I could start to feel feelings of joy. I could also turn towards my older boy being actually very supportive and being very loving. He was taking measuring tapes to measure my belly. He was taking the stethoscope to want to listen to heartbeat. He was talking to his brother, and he was so cute, and I was relishing in all those moments. When I reminded myself that this is not a permanent moment, this moment will pass, I was able to live in the moment a bit more. And even as I'm speaking about it now, I have to admit that I miss those moments a little bit. what worked was that I decided that my basic needs were important, because if I didn't put my mind to what's important to me, I will not actually be able to communicate that quite effectively to the people around me. A lot of moms forget that they are important too. A lot of moms spend most of our time looking after our children, looking after our husband, looking after our household, looking after extended family members, right? Like parents, grandparents, because we all live in a sandwich generation. But if we don't remember to look after ourselves and that actually our needs are important, we will not actually be able to communicate that to anyone. So I would like to remind all the mothers out there that you are important. You're doing an amazing job. You are a super multitasker and you're doing everything all the time that sometimes may be unappreciated or sometimes may not be seen. But take my word, the other mothers see you. So we are all doing it together. It's a community, it's a village. You're not alone. Thank you for listening to my story. I felt it was quite cathartic sharing my experiences, and I think that there's some strengths and resilience when we talk to people that we trust about the adventures or the experiences that we have had. And I think that encourages other people to talk about their traumas or their stories or their challenges as well. So if you feel comfortable, please share your story with us. Otherwise, I will encourage you to talk about it with the people in your community.